Hi there, well, welcome to the first in another series of videos I'm intending to make. This one's going to be looking at using X's and O's with the X-Touch Mini, and I'm going to be looking at my exploration of the MC mode, or some people call it the Mackie mode, that the X-Touch Mini can use. Or in fact, looking at why it doesn't work and how I found a way around that to make it do what I want it to do. A tiny bit of background behind it. Axes and O's, for some reason, started playing up a while ago. Sometimes it would load instantly, sometimes it could take up to 5 minutes to load. And sometimes it wasn't recognizing all the devices, or it dropped one out every now and then. Haven't got to the bottom of it. I've had lots of support on the forum. The conclusion is it's nothing to do with X's and O's. It's something in my computer. It possibly some piece of software or antivirus or something. Suddenly deciding it's going to go into some maintenance mode or look for an update. Can't quite cure it, but it's working. But for a while it got so frustrating, I thought I might try a different product, not X's and O's, and I won't name the other product. But it started off looking like it was going to be more consumer friendly. X's and O's needs a bit of work to make it really function at its best. And I was almost tempted to buy it, and it looked relatively cheap. And then I discovered that you have to buy the premium version to use Stream Decks as well. I use a Stream Deck with mine, and also it had annual fees as well for updates. Plus, I'd already invested hundreds of hours in understanding X's and O's. I had lots of expertise built up, and lots of aircraft already programmed in. So I thought, let's put one last effort into X's and O's and see if I can make it work. But one of the things that was dragging me towards this other product was it said that it could use the X-Touch Mini in Mackie mode, and it said it gave you unlimited layers on the X-Touch. And that was quite attractive. At the moment, I've only got layer A and layer B to work with, which kind of restricted the number of rotaries you can use. And let's bring this in. Up to now, I've been sort of flying this aircraft in this mode here with a GPS unit, and it's got a limited number of comms and things like that. And I wanted to work it in sort of an older fashioned way, pre-GPS way, and really get to grips with navigation here, which meant I really was going to be reliant on having two VORs and a number of two radios. And it meant I had probably more rotaries, particularly these stacked rotaries here, to deal with to get a really good emulation than I could do with just having layer A and layer B. Let's bring my Stream Deck. Yeah, this is my actual X-Touch Mini. Using just layer A and layer B wasn't going to be enough for me. Particularly if you look around, we've got rotaries everywhere if you really want to go for a good emulation. On the pedestal and that as well. So having lots of layers available to me was going to be useful. And there's a couple of hurdles to overcome with that. Firstly, is remembering what on earth is each controller doing in the different layers. Up to now, if you're just using layer A and layer B, I use these kind of overlays, which told me what was going to happen in layer A and layer B, and that's just not feasible. I kind of discovered that I needed 5 layers, sort of one to do the overhead panel, one to do these sort of basic comms, the COM1, VOR1, the transponder and ADF, another layer for the radio number 2, VOR2, and this RNAV unit, which I really wanted to explore. Another layer for the pedestal and the environment, and then another layer to deal with ventilation. So I ended up looking at 5 different layers. In fact, if I bring my Stream Deck in, this is not my actual Stream Deck. What's over here at the moment is the software that I use to program the Stream Deck. But if I put that up on the screen, you can see that I've kind of got the 5 different layers working here. But I said, remembering what's on each layer it is a challenge. So what I decided to do was to bring in to play a virtual Stream Deck, which is a new sort of feature of Stream Decks, that you can have a virtual Stream Deck on there, which these buttons could be active, but I'm just using it as labels in this one here. So for each of the different layers, if I change to the COM1 layer, it's just reminding me of what each of the controls is going to do. And if I go to another layer, let's go to the environment layer. So it's just switching the labeling for me. Now, I don't normally have this on the screen here, sort of ruining the view of the aircraft. That's normally on a second monitor, but I've brought it on here so you can see what is available to me. So that's one thing that I've got here. And you probably can see here that it's lighting up here to tell me which layer I'm on. So if I go to look, they're the controls for the overhead panel, and I'm on layer 1. And so these buttons, these lights here are just telling me which layer I'm on. But I can't use these buttons here to change layer because I'm programming those in as well on each layer so that I can control things as well as the rotaries. I can press the buttons. What I have done is I've got it so that I can use this slider here, and that will also slide me between the layers. I don't really want to keep changing the Stream Deck, going into different layers here. Probably I found that it's easy when I'm flying to actually keep the Stream Deck on the function that I'm using at that time. But to use this to change between the layers. So as I slide this up, you'll see the lights here changing, and again the labels to tell me what each layer does. So that's been quite useful, so I can change through the layers. The last thing I've done here with this is that I like to use these buttons here. Let's get into the comms 1 mode. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, so this button, this rotary here, is going to control the frequencies here on the comms 1. So at the moment this is emulating this stacked rotary here. So at the moment it's doing the kilohertz, and if I press on this and toggle that, it's now doing the megahertz. And I use that as an indication to remind me that I've changed modes. But if I change layers, what I want it to do is to remember, to remember the mode that it was in, so I come back and it's doing what I expect to do. But also I want the reminder to come back to me. So let's change to control the comms 2. So I've got to go up 1 layer here. And now this same controller here is going to be controlling this radio here, and it does exactly the same thing. That if I press on there and toggle, it'll now swap to doing the megahertz. But let's leave that in kilohertz. Let's go back to kilohertz. So this radio here is in kilohertz, and if I go to the COM1 now, let's move down to COM1 layer, you see it's reminded me, and it has remembered that I left that in the megahertz mode. So I've got variables behind there, remembering what it's doing in each mode. So each mode, the function of this changes and remembers what it's doing. So I find it's working really well. So I've been able to control just about everything on here, And I actually found that I don't use the Stream Deck very much now, that I've got a fair amount programmed into here. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of videos is I'll give you the kind of, well, I'll show you first of all why Mackie mode doesn't work particularly well. And then I'll go through the kind of theory, the background layout of the data structure to make this work. And so it'll work with any aircraft. And then I'll get more specific and I'll actually show you the commands I'm using for these particular radios and the functions in this particular aircraft. And this is the Black Square King Air that I'm using here. So I'll start off being very general, techniques that will apply to any aircraft, and then I'll become more specific about this particular one. I might have to use some of these as examples, so sort of bear with me as I work through this. Okay, so that's what I've got ahead. I think it's going to take about 5 videos to do this, but I haven't really planned those out. I just want to get an introduction down so you know where this is heading. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.